What's going on, y'all? It's Tunde. On this episode of No Agenda, we're talking about everything from Oakland, growing up playing baseball in Babe Ruth, my journey to Yale and then Columbia, opening a coffee shop, starting my clothing brand, and just the principles that playing sports and playing baseball specifically have, stuck with me through all this time, and everything that's coming next. Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about where you're from, who you are, what was life like for you growing up.
Yep.
Talk about maybe a story or two. Was a lot of sports. What was a day in the life as a kid for you?
Whew.
Big question.
Big question, but it does already flood my mind with memories. My name is Akintunde Ahmad. I just go by Tunde. Born and raised in East Oakland, Oakland native. For what, 4 generations on my mom's side. So family has been around Oakland and the East Bay area for a long time. Growing up in East Oakland and how even you and I know each other. Baseball was a big part of our lives. Playing Greenman Field on 66 in East Oakland. Yeah, it was just a different time. We talk about like just the day in the life. I feel like we're in that interesting era where
We saw a little bit of everything.
we saw a little bit of everything, and we also were like that last generation, or coming up on that last generation of like the outside kids, and that like in our childhood we really didn't have cell phones and stuff like
At
that.
all.
Like we didn't really probably get cell phones till like teenage years, and even then it was like I don't think the iPhone came out till we were in like eighth grade
Nah,
or
it was like
something.
the sidekick, bro.
Right.
The
It was like we
sidekick.
had
It was
sidekicks and
crazy.
stuff like that, but like even the smartphone era was like being before that, like our childhood was really about being outside. Like, I remember knocking on my boys' doors and ringing their doorbell and like, "What's up? We outside?" Getting on bikes and
Get
going
active.
on
Gotta do
missions
something.
and playing basketball at the park. As we got older, we would go hoop at Bancroft. We would have little tennis balls in the street that we play baseball with until you hit somebody's car or something and the car alarm go off, and then that's it for the day. But yeah, I was really part of that. Yeah, this culture and time period in Oakland where we were more outside, we were active, we were doing things, and just hoping that now as we're getting on the other side of things and have the opportunity to give back and just play a role in the next generation of developing, whether it's baseball players or just youth development period. Like it's cool to see so many of us now at that point in our lives where we're like, all right, we got some time, we got a little more resources, how can we all kind of play our part? But yeah, man, it's just rooted in Oakland public schools, K through 12. um yeah, a lot of sports,
That's a
baseball,
big pussy.
basketball,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
You could go on for days.
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. It's just very different than what we see now, though. I will say
What
that.
would you say the biggest difference is?
I mean, man, for one thing, it was just like going back to Babe Ruth and seeing what was opening day this year. It was like they was
Not even the same.
nah, they was just struggling to field an entire game. To have like 11 players on each side. I think at the minors level for like the 9, 10 year olds, they had a solid game that was going. But like when we were growing up, it's like
Bro, we had a
every age
whole
group had 12
festival. Yeah.
teams. Like each team had at least 12 players, and that's at every age group. And then just the parade from Concordia to Greenman Field and like how big of a day it was. The streets are shut off. You got the fire department and the police department escorting folks. You got the fire trucks out, and then you have even outside of like just the baseball side of things. And like, yes, this is a parade for baseball and celebrating the youth, and it's a big thing. It's also the community elements and the business elements. Like these teams were able to also thrive and have all these things happen because you had so many businesses that were sponsoring. So it's also like when you look back, really before our era, in like the '80s and things. When you talk to like people like our coach Brian Bassett and folks of that era, they're like, nah, every certain places like Allen Temple, they still had like the church and stuff like that, or Everett Jones or barbecue place would have a team, but there were like so many sponsors, and it was just teams named like, oh, this was after the Easy Mart, and this team was Mary Elihu
Had the
Harris
whole
had a
city rocking
team,
with it. It was just
yeah, and like
everyone was involved.
yeah, and so it was really like, oh, okay, this was much bigger than just like youth baseball. It's like you have built this community of businesses supporting the youth. You have, and then that also, turns into more opportunities outside of baseball. Now you're connected with people who are business
Networking,
owners.
even at a young age,
Exactly.
9, 10 years old, and you meet people that you
Right.
never know might have an impact later in your life.
Literally, you may need, give you an internship or give you a job as you get older, and then even within the league, right? It was employment for folks. A lot of folks, once they got to 13s and they like, okay, maybe I'm not pursuing baseball at the high school level, they would learn how to umpire, and then they would get paid to umpire because we have, 50 games a week
Games.
at this thing. And so it's like, oh, okay, if you making, whatever, how much they were making at the time, just like you could actually have a cool little like youth employment job and stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, I think baseball, looking at it through the lens of baseball and Babe Ruth and seeing that that doesn't exist anymore is not just,
Sad.
and that doesn't exist in just a little silo. It's like this is the visual representation of like a much larger issue, about, the city, about programs for youth, about businesses and like folks being able to support that. So, it's again, we talking about it through this lens, but it's a holistic view, of what that represents when these community hubs really, aren't out there no more. Because how many people would you estimate? Like if you went to Greenman on a Saturday,
Back then,
yeah,
it was live, bro. Like it
like
was the place to be, at
it
least as
was,
a kid.
yeah,
But just for the parents, I know they would go and have
you know what I'm saying? They
just
were
a good
cool, right? It's
time.
like I would estimate like at the park, it's at least who come through the park on any given day. It had to be over 1,000 people
Yeah.
because it's like,
And this is 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds playing
bro.
ball. This isn't
And
the
on the
big
far
leagues.
field,
Yeah.
just 5, 6 years old
Yeah,
because you had,
exactly. Youngins.
right, you had the T-ball field, which is like 5, 6. You had rookies, which was 7, 8. You had minors, 9, 10, and then you had majors, which was 11, 12. So you got 4 age groups, 10 to 15 teams
With
each
talent too. That's another thing that people don't
with
realize
talent.
that
Yeah,
all these teams had dudes.
yeah.
And
And it had this athletes too,
yeah,
because it was a
not
lot
just
of
in
people.
baseball too. They
Yeah,
ended up playing other sports.
yeah. A lot of folks went pro in other sports, or played college in other sports. So it was yeah. And you say it's different. You just
Yeah.
don't see it as much anymore. So we doing our part though. You definitely doing
Shoot,
your
every time
part,
I see you, I get a daily reminder of the Mustangs, bro. Like, I see you and
man.
Nico over there killing it, bro. You with the dread little kid just throwing cheese. Like you threw hard, bro.
Man, I had to pitch against them. Our mate in majors, 12 years
You
old.
threw
It was
against us
us.
in the championship game under
Yeah,
the lights, bro. I
under
won't
the
say who
lights.
won, but
We ended up losing.
yeah,
We ended
yeah,
up
Bulldogs.
losing, but I had 11 Ks that
Yeah, he
game.
did. He was throwing cheese. I won't lie. I still
I had
remember it,
11
bro. It was
Ks that
crazy.
game. But no, it was a good game. Nico, uh,
Talk a little bit about that. I know a lot of people don't know that about you. It's like you and Nico had a special connection at a young age. Like you guys put a lot of work in together.
yeah. I
And
mean, we
obviously we're on
just
the same team for a while.
right. We
All
played
stars too.
on. So like most of us, the like better the top players or whatever in the league, we all played all stars together. But on the team that I played for, the Mustangs that I played for from like 10, 11, 12. On that team was Nico Horner, who now is middle infield with the Cubs. My boy Kenny Greenwood, Grant Jackson. He went and played basketball at UC San Diego. I don't know if you remember Will Hicks, Mo.
Maybe.
He was solid. He ended up, I think, moving to like Manteca in high school. But man, we had a squad, and it was just funny because when we played them in the championship, Nico had actually broken his
Played the whole
hand
season
that
with a
year.
broken hand, bro.
And so I think actually I want to say he was playing catcher and somebody did a crazy swing and like on the
Smacked him.
swing came down and like hit his, I want to say that's how it happened. And then he just played with one hand. He was hitting
The
with
craziest thing
one
about that
hand,
though is
like,
with the one hand, he was still one of the best players, bro.
yeah.
That's
And
just
and
from
he
a
was
young
he
age.
was playing. He would do like the double glove, or he would have his cast was on his left hand, so he would catch. He put a left-handed glove, or that goes on your right hand for a left-handed thrower, and he would catch the ball, take it out, and then throw it with the same hand. But a competitor, a dog, and a lot of us was dogs, and so yeah. And on y'all side, I mean, obviously, I had you. Channing went and pitched at University of Washington.
Adrian
Um,
at the time,
right, Adrian was solid.
Carlos, who else?
Carlos.
Adrian,
Y'all had
Adrian,
Alexis.
Alexis was
Yeah,
good.
played
We
against
had some other
Alexis throughout
people.
high school.
Emilio. We were young too. The thing about our Bulldogs team is we had all-star players from the 12 and the 11.
Yeah,
So I was a younger guy on that team.
right.
So I'm in the bottom half of the lineup. While you got Chan, you got Adrian at the top. So you have the 12U all-star with the
Yeah,
11U. It was basically a little all-star team. We were good, and
yeah.
came out on top.
Came out on top, and that was fireworks night at
I
the
know at the
A's.
A's
That's what it
game, never
was. It was
forget.
just a crazy. It was a. Just imagine being 12. 66 Ave is not far from the Coliseum on 73rd, and we're playing in the same season time as the Oakland A's. And like midway through the game, it's fireworks night at the A's Stadium. So now it's like fireworks just going off all night while we're playing. And this was like one of the few night games because this is actual championship. But case in point, you could just see how we sitting here reminiscing just to show like
Years ago.
this was a, a time when like it was a competitive league, but we was out there like having fun, competing, and meeting people through this league and through this ball game that me and Nick never played on the same team. I don't
Never.
think ever, but
Played against each other.
right, we played against each other a lot, and you know how it goes. Like when you competitors and you see other folks, and as y'all getting older and you start working out together and everybody going after the same goal, like that's how these friendships and like community for real is built. And now, you know, literally like 20 years later, almost, it's like we're here talking about these times, and then just talking about what we're doing for this next generation. So it's yeah,
Building
that's
off
it.
of that, what do you think? I was going to talk about it later, but
Yeah,
what do you think the impact of losing the A's? Obviously, the Warriors is in San Francisco, losing the Raiders, but
yeah,
especially the A's. It's just like the
yeah,
story you just told. It's that impact I feel like is going to be felt by losing them
yeah.
for a while. It's just what do you think, or yeah, just what do you think about all of that?
I mean, it's a range of things. I think
There's so many different factors.
yeah, for Oakland to have no teams now is kind of crazy. Warriors on the other side of the bridge, but again, the impact is the same. If you don't have the Coliseum, you know what I'm saying, in there, it's like, oh, they're still close. And it's like, yeah, but the job opportunities that Coliseum and the Oracle Arena had, especially for youth, right? You go to the games, there's a program called Juma that like my cousin-in-law runs, but it was all about like youth employment at these games. So like it's so many different factors, right? From an economic standpoint, you take three of these are professional sports teams. These are huge revenue
Right.
generating,
Big league.
opportunities,
This is
big
the major
leagues,
league. This isn't minors. This
big
isn't high
leagues.
school. This is the big league.
And that means like year round, because you had three teams, you have somebody in season at any given time. And so, again, there's economic opportunity, but then it's also like that's a big draw. People want to go to games, you know what I'm saying? And it's
I
like the
love the
fact,
Coliseum, bro.
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
And like the difference between the Coliseum and a lot of places is that like the Coliseum is actually in East Oakland, in the part of Oakland that often gets overlooked. And that was one of the main, like you said, economic hubs in this region. When you take out the Coliseum and the Oracle Arena from that area, then it's like, dang, this was one of like,
the main draw.
the
Like,
main draws to this area, and now it's like
it's
even more
gone.
just residential. And so, I'm curious. We know we were talking about there's like the city of Oakland sold their share, and there's a group, I think it's just called the African American Sports Group, that bought that. And so, I mean, I'm not fully sure what their plans are. I'm eager to learn more about it, but I'm hopeful that something can come out of it. I'm not sure if it's going to be possible to create like a weird way, like an expansion team coming back to these things. Like I doubt that's going to
Hopefully
happen.
in our lifetime.
Hopefully in our
I hope
lifetime.
so.
They've been saying, the Oakland Roots, the soccer team is going to play there. Um, you know, there's like the Oakland Ballers who they have their spot in West Oakland. So I'm like, I'm not sure they're not going to come. They just spent all that time
No,
there. So
at least not in the next 5 years.
Right.
I
So it's
doubt it.
just like I'm unsure of what's about to happen with the Coliseum, and it's tough. And then just from a sports standpoint, like there was a relationship that we had, like when we was growing up. We had a field day where our league
Right.
would go to the Oakland A's stadium. The players would be there. You'd be able to interact with them. You'd be able to do drills with them, and there would be legends there. Like that's where you would see a Ricky Henderson or a Dave Stewart or somebody would be out there, and you'd be like, oh, okay. And then a lot of times when you get to see these people in person and understand and learn directly from them, it also just gives you that motivation of like, oh, okay, this is something that's achievable for me. And even if you don't end up going pro or whatever in the long run, like a lot of folks is like, cool, but we was able to play college and get college paid for, or you were able to, travel
Meet
the
new
world,
people,
meet new
like it's
people,
just
like
different opportunities
it's
just
all
from
of
that inspiration.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
just,
My phone dropped.
I don't know, it's sad to see.
Man, it
It's
is.
really the only word.
That's the only way to put it. And then it's just like, you know, Raiders in Vegas. I've gone to. I haven't been to a Raiders game, but I've gone to quite a few Warriors games in San Francisco, and even there, it just doesn't feel the same.
You'll never replicate Oracle, bro.
Yeah,
It was just,
it,
it's known for it.
yeah,
The fan base and everything is
it
just
does,
rowdy.
and it feels like what you think it would feel like. Oh,
Exactly.
new stadium in San Francisco, where San Francisco is not what San Francisco used to be at all. So it's just
Gotham
like
City.
right now, it's like it's tech world meets like crazy dilapidation and not it
No,
just
I
it's
get it.
it's lacking. So then it's like when you go to the games, it has no soul. Basically, that's like the main thing. It's just like a lot of folks there because Google has a section for the company that they can sit in, or this tech company, and it's like, when you don't have that commitment to a place because you're from there and you grew up watching them, it just changes what it means for folks. And so, like I said,
It's the
it's
meaning,
a
it's the inspiration behind
right.
it. It's not really a tangible number. You can't put a number
You
behind it.
can't. It's just the feeling
The
of
impact.
anybody who was there and has walked over the bridge, walking to the
Yep.
Coliseum, or caught Bart over there and walked over, and you hear people saying Warriors or the A's, and you know what I'm saying? Just
It's
the
the vibe, bro.
the people selling hot dogs and stuff on the overpass. Like when you take away a lot of those things, it's just
Felt like I had a death in the family, bro. Like
honestly, it's just a
it's
weird feeling where you like, okay, I'm excited to go to the game, and then you're like, oh no, this is not like it doesn't feel like
yeah.
the excitement that I grew up having. And so, I mean, that's part of yeah. I mean, that's just part of
Like
I guess,
yeah,
man,
like
part of life, and it's that weird feeling of like, yeah, something
we're
is
gonna do
missing.
something though. There's gonna be
Tell me
something in the future that
something in the future for sure.
will replace it. And I have a feeling you'll be involved with that somehow, some way.
Somehow, some way, man.
So,
Yeah,
all right, let's get back onto it. Let's talk a little bit about your school experience.
yeah,
So you have a unique background, obviously. Grew up in the public school system,
yeah.
but this man, I'm gonna just shout him out. This man had a 5.0 in high school. I know he probably doesn't like to hear it, but that's crazy impressive. But regardless, this man also went to two Ivy League schools so far, potentially another school
We gonna
soon.
see,
But he went to Yale and Columbia. Talk a little bit about that
yeah,
Ivy League experience. Like what would be your
man.
main takeaway from that? Because it's a different life out there.
It's definitely different. Like Nick said, like I grew up going to Oakland public schools. I graduated from Oakland Tech. Oakland Tech is a public high school that has a long legacy. Um, that's where like Marshawn Lynch went, but like it's also where Ricky Henderson went back in the day. So it's an interesting background for that school, but
There's a lot of people
a
from
lot
that
of people who
school.
went there,
Like,
Leon Poe, like Quentin Thomas, it's just a range of folks who have came through Oakland Tech. But I'll say transitioning from that to Yale, I'll say yes, there's like a culture shock and there's like a difference, but also I'll say I was expecting it, right? I don't think like
you knew what
you're
you were
going,
getting into, low
yeah,
key. Like you said,
right.
you never really know, but
But
when you get there, you're kind of
I was
like,
like, okay,
okay,
this is like
yeah,
kind of what I thought it was going to be. But I also was able to find a lot of folks. Well, I won't say a lot, but I was able to find
good
enough
people.
people who I vibed with, just from day one,
Yeah,
who came from similar backgrounds, from similar cities. Some folks from Chicago, some folks from New Orleans, some folks from the Bronx, and we created community out of that. And then I walked on to the baseball team as well because I was like I had
they recruited you though. Been good. Yeah, you talked to them a little bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
talked, and
They
it was,
knew. They
yeah,
knew
it
you
was.
were coming.
They knew I was coming. Basically, like I got in academically. I sent my highlight tape,
Yeah.
and then they were just like, I was like, well, and Ivy League schools, for those who don't know, like all of the Ivy League is Division 1, but they don't give athletic scholarships technically. All of their finances are like need based, need blind. However, Ivy League schools also pretty much always have the best like financial aid packages because they have such big endorsements. So like folks, if you go into one of those schools, you'll definitely be able to pay for it. Like so many people just get full rides off of, it's like if your parent now, I think it's like if your folks make below, I think they upped it to like
There's opportunities.
150,000,
Yeah.
you
Oh
get a
yeah.
full scholarship. I think it is. At the time, it might have been below like 100,000. But case in point, sent my highlight tapes in. The coach was like, "Cool, like you start working out with us when we come. Still got to prove yourself or whatever." But it was like for them, they like, "Cool, another person who actually has played." And I played in just all of the circuits and Arizona spring training facilities, all of that type of stuff. And had tapes from that, so it was cool. And then, man, my senior year, I like pulled my quad like early in the season. Didn't really play the rest of my senior year, so my tapes were from like that summer. My junior year, but my junior year of high
Did
school,
you
I
MVP
won.
one year?
I won. Yeah, so I was league MVP my junior year of high school. So I also like had that, and I had good film and statistics and stuff coming from that, stolen bases, all of that. Then had a good summer circuit, tapes from that, and so went started working out with the team as soon as we got there, and then bro, I just started dealing with recurring quad
Yeah.
injury stuff, and I was just like,
Life happens too.
man,
School,
and
injuries,
and
the
then
love of the
cold
game
weather,
too.
it's like it's like fall season,
It's a
and it's
grind.
just like sixth inning come around, you don't properly warm up
You
again,
feel it.
and then it's like, oh, you hit a grounder and you're trying to beat it out, or you hit something to right field and you're trying to beat it out, and messed up my quad again. Started doing a whole bunch of rehab and stuff, and I was just like, you know what? I got here academically. I walked on. It got to a point where I just wasn't enjoying it like I used to, and so then I was like, all right, I got so many more opportunities. Like I'm here.
Elsewhere.
Let's make this happen. So ended up just stopping playing my freshman year. It was still a cool experience. Learned a lot. Met some cool people. Um, yeah, and from there, it was just the normal Ivy League experience. I will say I had a whole lot more time after I stopped playing.
Facts.
Like anybody who has played a college sport can tell you, like, yeah, it's time consuming, and I feel like people do not understand the student athlete
No.
grind. Like waking up at 5 a.m. for 5:30 workouts, and then
You got class.
you got class, but then you're limited in the classes you take because they got to fit into that window because you'll then have
Practice too.
afternoon
Yeah,
practice.
exactly.
Right. So it's like, it's a range of things. And on the weekends, if you're traveling to games or having, even if you don't have a scheduled game, you may have, an inter squad game or a captain's led practice or whatever it is. And so, yeah, it takes up time. And when you get to a point where you're like, am I really loving this the way? That's when you really you see, and again, the injury side of things makes it worse. When you're injured and you like not performing at a level that you're used to as well, it's like but I don't have any regrets about it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I ended up then playing club basketball
Oh
instead. I
man.
hooped as well, so I was like, baseball was my main sport for sure. But yeah, I played varsity basketball and stuff in high school too.
Hey, you.
Yeah, played AAU and stuff. So
I remember you
uh,
in middle school though.
when we were right in middle
Yeah.
school, we had a legendary.
You might not remember this. I actually played you. I was younger though. You guys smacked us. They were
Where at?
cold. At Montera. I was on that Lincoln Alameda team. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
did Jalen play with y'all?
Jalen.
No.
Maybe. I'd have to. I don't even remember
It
the full
was
roster,
a
bro. I
Keelan?
just. Yeah, Keelan Doss.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on that team.
Okay, that's
So I
what I
was
thought.
young on that team.
Okay, got you.
You were.
Got
I
you.
don't remember,
Yeah.
but I just remember getting smacked though. Like
He was
y'all.
he a receiver
Yeah,
now,
he's in
right?
the league.
Yeah.
He was with the Raiders.
I remember that team. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was another school called Wood that
Yeah,
Jalen went to.
Wood.
Yeah.
That's same as us.
Okay, got
Who
you.
we played.
So Jalen played for them, but Keelan played for y'all because they all played North Coast Express
Yeah,
AAU
AAU.
together. So some of them got you. Got
It
you.
was cold.
Man. So yeah, I mean, but then like I said, you on the Ivy League campus, you have so many opportunities, and so I will say one of the biggest things that I learned there, outside of what you learn in the classroom and stuff, was really um, just how much of a difference in opportunity and resources there was for some folks. I had never heard about, like, obviously we heard about boarding school, but
Yeah.
we kind of heard about like the Bay Area doesn't have boarding
Not like
schools.
that.
Like,
Not like the other parts of the world.
yeah, like not at all. Like there are some schools, you got places like Head Royce and stuff where cool, it's like
Good
a
school.
good
Yeah.
school and it costs good money and nice facility and stuff, but like the boarding school concept is completely different. And I didn't realize that like there was a whole district or whatever you want to call
World.
it called like Ivy Prep was like an
Oh, see,
actual like
they got to step
conference
ahead.
or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, and it was like Andover and Exeter and Choate and all these different places. And like when my first year I'm meeting people and like you're asking people where you from, where you go, and like I just keep hearing Andover, Exeter, Choate, Deerfield, all these places. I'm like, what are these places? And they like, no, it's like a legit boarding school on the East Coast. Is in this whole Ivy Prep league, and like people like it's literally like some of these schools predated like Yale and Harvard
Yeah.
and stuff. Like they were the high schools
These are just high school.
first, and then like as those people aged out, then these like it's just crazy histories. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then you're realizing like, oh, okay, these schools built in had obviously they had smaller class sizes and more resources and all of that. But then like even when you talk about just like preparation, it's like, oh no, they had SAT prep built into what they were doing on top of,
From a young age.
right, on top of like these folks' parents had money and went to Yale as well, so they were preparing for those things. So you also just realize like, oh, okay, like there's that whole phrase like genius or talent or whatever you want to call it is evenly distributed, but like opportunity and resources aren't. And that was like the first time where I was like, oh, okay, this is like a crazy, yeah, because it was just it was it was
It was
levels,
obvious too.
yeah,
Like right when you got there, you could see it.
yeah.
Just in your face. Every person you meet.
There's a lot of like a vast majority of folks were coming from a lot of these places. There were, you know, far less folks who were coming from like public school backgrounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, it was more, especially from an athlete standpoint, those were folks I gravitated towards because they were more people who came from public school backgrounds or similar backgrounds as us. And so it was cool. But like I said, I had a good time at Yale. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think people have a perception that it's so buttoned up, and it's like
Yeah.
it's really not. I think you obviously it's a elite school that has those type of folks there, but for the most part, folks are there uh, are enjoying it. You get to learn a lot. You got a super wide range of classes. Yale has a crazy just like art scene. So when I get to like my third year and fourth year there. Now I'm starting to see shows, and I'm like, oh, okay, like the Yale School of Drama. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, Yale School of Drama does produce all of these like Academy Award winning actors and stuff. Like, let me go see these plays that they're putting on or these theater things, because like these are the folks who are gonna be. And like, sure enough, like even talking about Oakland and coming back, like this dude Yahya Abdul Mateen, he played. Now he done been in Jordan Peele movies. He played in Candyman. He been in Aquaman. He was in The Get Down with Cadillac. Like all of these different things, but like he went to McClymonds and he went to Yale School of Drama when I was there, and it was just like, oh, okay, like then again at the time he hadn't been in any of these movies. He was a student at Yale School of Drama, but you get to catch people like that right before they blow, and then right after that he's, big movie after big movie after big show, and so yeah, it was a cool place to be, and honestly, New Haven, Connecticut, dope place, like. New Haven is not what people think it is because Yale buys up so much of the things and like it's concentrated in that area. But like I like New Haven. It was a lot more of a diverse city than folks think. Close to New York if you want to pop over to New York, but New Haven had a lot of food, an interesting art scene, and then a lot of people who I met, a lot of folks who worked at Yale, like worked in the dining hall or just different services and stuff.
Different people.
I meet them and then we end up hooping at the gym and like you start, you know what I mean? Like you just start developing relationships with folks in the city and learning more about that as well. So I had a good time.
That was for undergrad.
Yeah.
What you went to Columbia for your master's?
Yep.
Why did you pick journalism and film? Where did you start to develop that love for it?
Yeah.
Or why did you pick that? Just kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. I think I don't know. Throughout school, I started getting into like documentary films. Just started watching films more. And it was different stuff. It was people like Stanley Nelson. Um, he had this film like on the Black Panther Party, Vanguard of the Revolution. He had one on like the like crack cocaine epidemic. He has a whole bunch of
Yeah.
films. Like,
Portfolio.
but then I also was like reading a lot of like op-eds and things. Like I was a sociology major, so I was learning a lot about social inequality, and like that was one of the beauties of things. Like a lot of things we grew up experiencing, we didn't really understand or have full knowledge of, like the history and the backstory of why certain things existed, right? Why Oakland Babe Ruth had these terrible fields that we was struggling
Yeah.
through, and like really iron sharpens iron and getting good at, and like No Soul had a completely different
Complete opposite. We're
experience.
seeing both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like I studied sociology because I was like, okay, this is like the study of these things and understanding more about social inequality. And I think in that time period, I was like, I wasn't really trying to go the academic route and write, long books, because I feel like,
Not yet.
not yet, right. But at the time, I was like, I wanted to kind of provide my perspective and be a voice and say, like, I got this unique perspective of like growing up in East Oakland, navigating the Oakland Public School District, understanding this side of things. Now, complete opposite side of things, like going through this Ivy League experience, understanding, like we were just saying, the resources and opportunities that folks have that we didn't. And like, I want to write about this from my perspective. I want to tell these stories. And then also from a film perspective, like I know that film is a medium that you can reach more people on. Like you may not read
Especially now and the future. Bro.
literally, and it's like, you may not read a 250-page book. Like you may have a harder time convincing somebody to do that, but you'd be like, you could watch this 45 to 60-minute film that I made on the same issue, and that may spark your interest in it. So that was like my reasoning behind it. And so I went to Columbia Journalism School, did the documentary film program, and yeah, I mean it was a 1-year program also, so it wasn't like, oh, I'm going back to
Still,
5 more years of school. It was
Yeah, yeah.
quick program, kind of got in and out, learned this skill set, and just started working. I worked with Columbia Journalism Review first, doing writing. It was an interesting time because then the pandemic happened. So from a film perspective, a lot of documentary was kind of slowing down. But on the other side of that, I ended up working with Proximity Media. So that's Ryan Coogler's company, another Bay Area native. He Richmond, Oakland, and so worked with his company for nonfiction on this film, on the national anthem, directed by Pete Nix. Pete Nix is a legendary Oakland filmmaker, who he has a trilogy that we can get to this later, but he has a trilogy on Oakland that I think folks should watch. And so it was just a cool experience. We did a road trip, drove from Detroit to New Orleans, saw hella different parts of the country I never saw. Like I was in Clarksdale, Mississippi, like just random, like the Mississippi Blues Trail. We was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had never been to Nashville, Tennessee, all these little hubs of music. I had never been to Detroit either. And so yeah, it was cool. And so I'm still, always working on media projects. We were talking about something about, Oakland Babe Ruth and that league, and a lot of things. But my media projects have primarily been focused on Oakland and like just giving my perspective and telling this unique story about, how I feel about things. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to see what you get into and just the different projects you put out, bro. Everything you put out to this point has been good, and I highly recommend y'all tune in. It's more just for the future too.
Yeah.
Like even something like this is just like we're talking about film, media. It's the present, but it's also the future. This is where everything's trending in that direction. It's just, and I think you have a good grasp on the different sides of it and give a real good perspective for the viewer.
We're gonna be working. We got a lot ahead of us, but we're grinding.
Let's talk a little bit about the brand that you started. I know we talked about it in the last interview.
Yeah.
But that was in the beginning stages, in the origin.
Yeah.
So since then, what have you been up to?
Right.
What are some key lessons and experiences that you've learned so far to this point, and like maybe some recommendations for people trying to start something like similar?
Yeah. So yeah, the backstory behind this brand is.
Got it on too, by the
oh
way.
yeah, this is just a little.
piece.
This is just a tea just showcasing. This is we do a lot of outerwear and use hand woven fabrics and things. But basically, the brand Ade Deshay. Ade is my middle name. It means royal, and Deshay means royal as well, but it's in the Ghanaian language. And so Speaking about Yale and just like the Ivy League experience, one of the things that I was fortunate enough to do was spend a semester in Ghana in West Africa, at the University of Ghana. So I was out there for like 5 months or so. Um, and first recommendation, if you're in college and like you're not playing the sport and you have the opportunity to travel, like study abroad. I promise you the campus is going to be the same when you get back. Like take a semester and just go somewhere, like have that experience. Because, once you get older and you get to working and all those different things and like life start happening, the likelihood that you can just go somewhere else for 6 months and completely immerse yourself in another culture is, it's just going to be more difficult. I'm not saying you can't, but it's going to be more difficult. So yeah, I was undergrad Yale, studied abroad in Ghana. And while I was there, I started getting interested in fashion, going to, different markets and fabric markets. And like, honestly, I'm coming across everything. On one hand, I'm coming across like these, woven textiles and these hand dyed textiles. And that's what I ultimately ended up using for the brand. But like on the other hand, I've seen 20-foot python skins. That's
Some
raw
crazy.
skins. Like I've seen cheetah skin, like, certain stuff that should not be
Yeah.
like, I've seen it all. And so just going to these different markets and understanding, like, okay. And then I'm like, I really like these fabrics and I've only seen them used in these like very traditional contexts and like, just these type of robes and, things that like royalty and stuff wears. But I'm like, how can we make like some similar fabrics that don't have the same, royal meaning, not to disrespect any of the heritage or culture, but weave these in the same way, do some different color combinations and make, pieces that I would want to wear, make
Yeah.
these type of trench coats or these jackets or, these type of shirts and things that I know folks would like. And so kind of just started getting into it organically, started making small stuff for myself. People started seeing it, asking questions about it, and then started making things one off for people. And then basically grew organically from there and was like, all right, let's like do like a whole run. And so it's been interesting building a business in West Africa just because, it's not a region that folks have traditionally gone to start a clothing brand. Usually it's like, you go to China, Pakistan, different places that are known for production. You work with a factory over there. Even, LA garment district, like you can do stuff here. But I really wanted to do it there because that's where everything started.
Separator, bro.
Right. And that's where the fabric comes from. And then also, economic opportunity in the region. I was just like, there is, crazy amounts of poverty, but it's really crazy when you see that level of poverty, but you see it paired with people who have a work ethic like you've never seen before. Because you would think like, oh, are people like lazy? Like, how come folks aren't able to, have this economic access? And it's like, it's outside of their control. That's a larger conversation, but like, it's people who we work with who will spend the entire day hand weaving a fabric, with crazy detail, and it's like they have ingrained in their memory these geometric patterns, and it's all done by hand.
I think that's the dopest part, the attention to detail.
Bro, it's
Especially with all
crazy
those
attention to
pieces. It's like
detail. And it's
you'll look
like,
at it and be like, wow,
and then when you see
it
that this was
stands out.
somebody who did this
Man.
out of their head too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some computer program, just like they did this their way. And then, and then it's like, and still you see that folks are like having these economic struggles and are really, really grinding, to make things happen. And so I was like, all right, like if we make a brand that's successful and it's utilizing these fabrics, and then we're doing all our cut and sew production in Ghana and Accra as well, like we can hopefully, right, the hope is to grow and expand and get to the point where like more folks can work with us, and have like some employment opportunities. A lot of folks don't know, but like 60% of the world's working age population will be on the African continent by 2030. So that's just 6 years from now. And so while like a lot of other places have like declining populations, Africa's is steady growing. It's one of the fastest growing. And I'm talking about the entire continent.
Yeah.
I'm focused, more so on West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and what we're doing. But yeah, bro, it was just like I don't have any background in fashion or anything. It was just
That's what's dope about it, though.
one foot in front of the other. We're gonna be hands on. We're gonna figure out how to do these things. And so for somebody who has done so much school and like learned things in such a formal way, it was also cool for me to just like I'm not reading this in a book. I'm not like
You're putting it into action.
I'm
Doing
feet to
real things.
pavement. Like we figuring it out and we talking through all of these things and understanding how to bring it into a reality. And so now we're like 3 years in. We had some success. We've been able to have stuff on Steph Curry in the last time they won the finals when they beat the Celtics 2022.
Yeah.
Um,
Just saw it in a La Russell music video too. It's
Man, right.
crazy,
The
bro. It's
Russell,
just
shout out Ariel, Ariel, the stylist. She put our stuff on the Russell, and shout out the Russell for really rocking with local brands and small brands. Sherry McMullen, McMullen Boutique in downtown Oakland. I think they just opened a spot in San Francisco as well. She was styling Steph Curry for the finals, and Steph Curry was very deliberate about wanting to wear, up and coming designers of color rather than, you know,
yeah, so generic.
you're right, exactly. And so it's an interesting landscape. I just been learning a lot about the fashion space, but it's been a lot of people who have been supporting, and we've been growing. And I think from the media standpoint too, it's like using the skill set to show the behind the scenes of how stuff is woven and the people we're working with and upcycling and stuff we're doing has been cool. But a lot of that marketing side of things has been showcasing like the behind the scenes of what makes us different. So it's been solid, bro. It's been
I
solid.
think a big separator too is just the uniqueness of it and just all the designs. You look at it and it's like they know exactly what it is. You feel me?
Yeah.
It's that separates itself in its own, and then you find out about when you a fan will look more into it, look more into you, find out more about the story. It's easy to rock with,
Ugh,
and
ugh,
that's why I'm glad to see obviously guys like Steph. You feel me? It's
yeah.
like it's dope to see that you're getting the flowers you deserve, and it's only the beginning.
It's
It's
early.
like exactly
It's
that's the
early
crazy
for
part. Like
sure.
it's
We
I
got
can't wait to see where it goes, the
yeah.
trajectory of it.
Got a lot of plans. Got a lot of plans, but
Man.
we put them into action for
So,
sure.
what would your main advice be to someone looking to get involved in not necessarily just streetwear uh, clothing,
Yeah.
but just starting a business or running your own business, or maybe some advice to running a black-owned business?
Yeah, I think it's the main thing I say is just don't overthink it. I think there's a certain amount of, research and due diligence you want to do. Right, you do want to create a business plan and say like, all right, what problem am I solving, or how am I entering this market and adding something new to it. Um, but up until a certain point, you can only do so much research. At the end of the day, you got to make
Facts.
something, you got to put it out
You
there
got to
and
do
test
stuff,
it.
put it into action.
Um, everybody in business world talks about the MVP, which is your minimum viable product, but basically all that's saying is like, what is the smallest amount of this product that I can put out to then get feedback on and figure out how I can make it better. So if you're doing shirts, rather than just go out and just make 1,000 of them of a design that you don't know if folks are gonna like can you put out 100 of them, but instead do 100 in 5 different colors or whatever. This is like oversimplifying it, but I'm just saying like if you see one is doing better than the other, then oh, it's a good thing I didn't just make 1,000 of this
You're
one
testing the
color.
market.
Yeah, but the MVP is how do you do that with the least amount of money spent and the least amount of product out there so that you're not wasting money making product that you can't actually sell. And so, but outside of that, I think the biggest issue with a lot of folks is that they spend too much time kind of like psyching themselves
Yeah,
out
worried
of it.
about it.
And
Just
it's
do it, bro.
like, at the end of the day, like you can only do it and it's a learning experience, right? It's like, even if you do end up having to sell stuff at what you paid just to get the money back if you can't make a profit or whatever it is, like you can mitigate your loss, and then you learn from it. Cool,
Yeah,
maybe this wasn't it, but you know as you do it, there are also just things that'll arise and like naturally you're gonna start.
you start improving, bro.
Yeah, it's
Like
like, oh, okay, I'm
even
using.
from the beginning to now, I know for a fact
Oh yeah,
your knowledge base of it all is
it's
just
it's crazy,
crazy.
bro. It's like everything just becomes more efficient, and then we just have so many tools now, like utilizing tools like Shopify, um, utilizing all these different apps and plugins that Shopify has, especially like from the e-commerce side, Klaviyo. Like there are just all these things that like you get on somebody else's website and it's like, oh, how'd they make the pop-up come up for the 10% off code? And like, oh, how did they automatically send me an email when I left something on my cart? And
Exactly.
it's like,
But it's those little details, bro.
yeah, and you learn them as you go. It's like again, you get a product, you put it out there, you try and get in front of folks physically if you have a physical product, and like that's the best way to go about it. So don't
You
psych
do
yourself
pop-ups
out.
too and everything.
I
Like
do
you're
pop-ups,
out there,
bro. I
bro.
do, try and make good content, take good photos to showcase the stuff. Like, put real sincere effort into it. But
The main thing though is that it's starting this is where a lot of people I feel like need to understand is it's starting from the right place.
Oh yeah,
Some people just all want to do it just to do it.
yeah,
But in reality, what I was saying earlier too is your brand itself has a strong foundation, a strong meaning, a strong reason behind it, and especially you, the owner, you're gonna go all in on it, but not just because it's you, but
yeah.
you want to see it succeed and you want to help others while doing that. And your story alone, I feel like, is gonna inspire a lot of people, bro.
That's the. I mean, that's the goal. And just showing people that you can do stuff in like a ethical way. I
Yeah,
feel like for a lot of people, the end all be all is like the money, but it's like if you cutting corners and like the quality of stuff you producing, if you don't care about the way that it's produced and you cool with it being made in a sweatshop or like you have knowledge that it's made in these ways, like there are just a lot of things that for me just I don't know, bro. I just have I'm a
that's
more
gonna be your brand. You want to
yeah,
do it the
like I'm
right
just a
way.
morally
Yeah,
sound person, and so I'm like, well, like it's a way to do this that doesn't fit this traditional model, and
right.
we can make it work for the way that we want to do it. And so trying to trailblaze, and when you're the first to go down that path, and a lot of times you have different struggles than what other folks may have, but you also then have opened up this whole new realm of stuff. So
Right.
it's worth it.
In addition to the brand, though, you have Kinfolk, another. He mentioned it earlier, but a spot he opened in Oakland. And you talk a little bit about the work you've been doing with Kinfolk and also ESO.
Got you.
What you've been doing currently, really.
Yeah, yeah. So right outside of the brand, I co-founded this coffee shop wine bar in Oakland, and really a community space called Kim Folks.
It's a dope place.
It's with an X. It's on 20th and Telegraph, so it's a block away from the Fox Theater. Co-founded it with my guy Creighton Davis, another Bay Area native. And honestly, me and Creighton started linking up during like pandemic time. We had met each other at like the Jackie Robinson Foundation conference actually on the East Coast. Found out we were both from the Bay, and honestly, I probably hadn't talked to him in like 5, 6 years. Like since it was,
That's how it works,
how
bro.
it goes. You meet somebody, y'all swap numbers, you connect on LinkedIn, whatever, and then I had been writing a lot about just like policing in Oakland and like this whole federal monitoring of the police department and just the funding and stuff that went into that. And so, long story short,
Yeah,
we linked up just talking about like how to have people in our city more like civically engaged because like it's national elections and different things that get a lot of attention, but like as it relates to you and like your day to day, it's the local things that's gonna matter more. And whether it's an election or it's just like we want to do more community events or we want to get like minded people together to do things and like actual
uplift
community
the
building.
community, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like have opportunities to do that. That's how we just started talking.
Yeah,
Period. And basically, the idea got floated out around like opening like a coffee shop, wine bar, community space. And the idea was that coffee shop during the day, people come work and do things, but like if you do the wine side of things in the evening, it just allows us to stay open later, and then
different
over like
crowds.
wine and
Yeah,
stuff, you can instead and like we got beer, we got wine, we got cider, like
it's a
all of these
dope
things
vibe
in
in
the
there, bro.
evening.
Y'all got it right.
Yeah, but it's just like now you have a space to have community events. So like right now, there's a lot of city council elections going on. So we've been having town halls, and it's like it's not us telling people how to vote or favoring anybody. It's like all of the candidates who's on the ballot, we have in a town hall, pull up. We'll have just opportunity for y'all to talk about what it is, and we don't really do debates. It's just
Right.
like come meet folks, come understand what it is that
Good
they're standing
conversation.
for. And so those things, but then we have, I mean, everything, bro. We have different mixers. Sometimes we have game nights. Sometimes we got trivia nights and
Which is
just,
cool.
partnering with local brands and just anything. Like there are so many niche pockets and groups and like cultures in Oakland,
Man.
and we've been trying to have something for everybody. Like
Yeah.
we done had figure drawing classes. We done had paint and sips. We've had book launches, like, but it really has been the space that we initially envisioned. And like with me being in LA a lot of the time now rather than Oakland because I relocated down here for my girl is a musician and all these different things. It's easy to get back and forth to the Bay, but like I'll say Creighton and the team, like Bianca, who's our general manager, and Rachel, who runs our events, like they really are the folks who have been holding it down and like making stuff happen. Just because I haven't been as hands
Yeah,
on, I
you're
was
doing a
in
lot of things
Oakland,
though, bro.
yeah,
Big
but I was
things.
in Oakland when we opened up, and was just more instrumental in the opening and just being hands on with all the things that it
Yeah,
took to open
it's
a
a lot.
physical space, and then relocated down here. And so, yeah, it's just cool to also see like to be able to work with folks who have the same vision and alignment, because it's like,
Especially in Oakland too.
yeah, because
So
it's like even though I'm not up there as much as I would like to be, I am always happy with the events and the turnout and the things that we have, because I'm like, this is what we were doing it for. And it's interesting too, like just pulling up to the space and seeing like also all the ways that Oakland has changed.
ooh,
It's like it's sometimes like I'll go in there and I'm like, I don't know a single person in here. Like I know, obviously I know everybody on the team
yeah.
and everybody who we work together with, but I'm just saying like,
But usually you'll have some type of connection with somebody.
bro, and I'm just like, it's a range of folks. And so, it's interesting too, right? It's in the daytime there are certain
Correct.
folks who have the privilege of being able to work from a coffee shop
Yeah.
all day, right? You got a remote tech
Surviving on
job
it.
or you got a this or that. But then, that's rare. Most of the time it's like just connecting with folks who I'm seeing folks who I ain't seen since high school, just
Yeah.
in there working. And a lot of folks don't even know that I'm involved with it. So then it's like just
I
funny to
remember
then
when
have this
you
conversation.
dropped the first video, I was juiced. I was like, ooh,
Man.
that shit looks dope.
Yeah, and I feel like we just been growing, bro. We just been growing and figuring out a lot of different things. The main thing right now I'm working on is just more merch stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it's so funny, like the revenue streams of like, yeah, and figuring out that side of things, how much you can make from coffee versus wine,
Yeah.
beer versus merch versus
Picking which
events,
one,
and
you feel me? Yeah.
yeah. So it's been cool. It's been cool. Have been learning a lot. Have been learning a lot for
If you
sure.
could go back, like, if you could talk to your younger self, what have you learned since then? Or like that you
Uh,
wish you had known earlier?
mm,
Especially with, like you said, you have your hands in a lot of different things,
yeah,
but especially on that front, because you're actually doing tangible things. You're creating not just a brand, but a physical space where
yeah,
people can interact and do different events, you're bringing people together.
yeah,
So if you could go back, I know you're still in the early stages of it,
yeah.
but if the very beginning, what do you wish you had known?
Man, I think I really learned that a lot of times we like put folks on a pedestal, or we think that like people who start businesses that are successful or whatever are like some type of just chosen,
Yeah,
ordained, like, and it's like people are just normal folks who have the audacity to try something, and then they make a lot of mistakes in the early days and they learn from those mistakes. But now that I've like, just met other business owners and like understanding folks who are taking the risk to start their own businesses, I'm like, oh, there's nothing special about any of these
no,
folks. Like, you know what I'm saying?
maybe work
Myself and
ethic or something,
yeah,
or something
but it's
like
like
that. But
myself included, it's just like, oh, you just started something and then you're like, all right, like I'm just not gonna stop and I'm gonna figure out how to improve this. You have your ebbs and flows. Like we have months that are great, we have months that are down. Whether it's clothing stuff, it's like some items do better than others, whatever it is. But just sticking to it and knowing that like they're as much as like these dudes who get on the internet and like make you seem like entrepreneurship is so easy. It's like, oh yeah, all you got to do is buy a fourplex and rent it out, and you take the equity
they
out
don't
that
explain
fourplex.
it though.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yes, it's that simple
but
to a certain extent once you get to that point. But what led up to all of that?
exactly, and it's like people, are just kind of regurgitating these same type of
Yep.
cliche phrases, and like, no, I understand that like what an asset and what a
Yeah.
liability is, but like this is completely different than like how do you build a physical you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, okay, you got to get your beer and wine license
Yeah.
and go through the alcohol board. You have to get zoning permits with the city. You have to, oh, like you want to add more outlets so that people can come and work. Like you got to get,
Approvals. Yeah.
it's like it's a range of those type of things. And again, all of those things are doable. It's just you just got to take it one step at a time and understand. It's the same thing with the clothing side of stuff. I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna make this many things, and then it's like, I want to get some labels. Like who makes like these labels, and how do we attach
Little
these, and you
details.
know what I mean,
Yeah.
like, and how do we do this and that, and so you figure out all of those things. So I'll say, my advice to my younger self would just also to be like to let myself know none of these folks are like just crazy special.
Yeah.
Like this is all doable if you stick to it and like dedicate and have the discipline to like put the time into it. So
Being dedicated and disciplined is stuff that these are different things that you can incorporate into your life in all aspects
Yeah,
too. It's how to be successful in
bro.
anything really.
Yeah, because it's I think of it like from a fitness standpoint. I feel like that's the easiest way to think about it. Like your body is a vessel that's going to respond to what you put into it and what you do it. And it's like, do I not have a six pack right now because I don't know about diet and
Yeah,
exercise, or is it that I don't have the discipline to stop
because you know the
eating?
discipline it takes to do it. It's just
Exactly. It's like,
you got to make choices.
and that's what it is, bro. It's like most folks they don't need the step by step or the this or that. It's like we just need to make sure we are locked in and have a discipline to follow through with those things. And like, I just use a fitness one because it's like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, if you start running 5 miles a day and cut out carbs, like, you're gonna end up getting to the point where you want to be.
that's facts though.
Yeah,
Is there anything that you do specifically to help stay this? Because everyone's gonna
yeah,
have their ups and downs where it's like I just don't feel like doing it today.
yeah.
Is there anything that you do specifically that you think helps your general routine and just staying active? Because you have your hand in so many different things. Is there anything that you do on a daily basis or consistently throughout your week
I
that you
mean,
think helps with all of this and your productivity?
I think just getting up early is one thing. And I mean, that's it. Just a
Yeah, yeah,
function
yeah.
of
It
routine. You
helps.
just gotta kind of start getting up early, and the first couple of days are tough, but once you make it a habit, like you can get used to it. But man, social media is just the downfall of so many great things, and it's like I use this app um, called ClearSpace, and it just basically regulates how long you can be on. Because sometimes you just end up you getting on, and it's like, and even when you're on it, you're like, oh, like I'm being pretty, whatever.
I try to be as productive as I can.
Right,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like how the algorithm works is
You're
just
gonna go
like
down a rabbit hole,
it's
bro.
going to show you something, and then it's like so you actually have to like work to combat these algorithms that are specifically designed to zap all of your attention
Facts.
and keep you on them for as long as possible. So it's like it's tough, right? Because you got all of these top minds working at Apple and Meta and all of these
Working
places
to
working
get
to
you
get
locked
your
in.
attention.
Yeah.
And so yeah, sometimes you just gotta utilize technology again in another way and say like, all right, this app is going to limit this and have a hard stop on things. So I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Um, I get on socials, like sometimes I won't be able to watch like the games or something I want to watch, so I'll check out the highlights and things like that. But it's like there's no reason that should take
All the time.
you know what I'm saying? Like
All day too.
so I think between those two things, just getting up early and getting a jump on the day, working out early and getting that out the way, and then yeah, limiting social media use. Those are the main two things that kind of keep me on
It's good
track.
after really.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're getting close to the end.
Yeah,
Let's talk a little bit. One more question on baseball right now.
yeah.
So, how do you think? You kind of alluded to it earlier with the Babe Ruth talk, but
Hmm.
how do you think we, like us, former players and current players, but MLB guys, just all together, how
Yeah,
do you think we can make baseball more accessible to everybody, and just obviously you can talk about Oakland, but
yeah,
just in a large scale too.
yeah. Man, it's a range of things. I think so. On one end, there's like the culture of baseball. I think growing up, we had more icons that we related to. Like you think about, you got King Griffey Jr. You got like Manny Ramirez and the Manny Pans and like just
Yes,
the swag that
little
they
things.
brought to the game. You got Barry Bonds and his. It's funny because everybody wearing the dangly earrings
Yeah,
now again, but like you know what I'm saying,
you know
Barry
what it's about.
Bonds and like the things that he was doing at the time period. Even Derek Jeter with like the Yankees and having the Jordan collab, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like all of these different things made the game attractive, specifically for like inner city youth in places like Oakland who may not relate to other folks who are the traditional players or whatever in that type of way, and so. It's people like Mookie Betts, people like Jazz. I mean, they both in the World Series right now,
Perfect.
also on
This
the
World
highest
Series is
stage.
booming. Yeah.
But like, I think those things make a difference. They look comfortable. They wearing their chains. They dress in the way that they want to dress. They talk the way they want to talk, and they're playing the game the way that they want to
Yeah.
play. Right? Jazz has a unique way that he plays. He gonna steal on you. He gonna take what you give him. He gonna talk. I mean, Mookie Betts is Mookie Betts. Very consistent.
Yeah.
Can play a lot of positions, but like he also just all around athlete. Will go bowl and go
Bro, he's
and
crazy
hoop.
with the bowls.
Yeah, you know what I'm
It's
saying? Like all of
crazy.
these things. So I think culturally, that's like one thing making the game more attractive. I think us and folks in our specific generation just doing our part to get more involved on the youth side and saying like here is a generation of folks who look like y'all and come from places like y'all and played in the areas. And so, the camps that folks are doing,
Yeah.
camps that you've done, camps that
Shout out
Tyson Ross has
Yes,
done,
sir.
loyal to my soil. Shout out Tyson for continuing to have these camps, at Greenman Field
Yeah.
and in Oakland where we all grew up, growing to love this game. I think that's part of it. But then also, I think, we just got to you have to have institutional investment from the city and things as well. Not just in Oakland, but everywhere. I mean, I was saying like down here in LA, like we're in Inglewood right now, and like Darby Park around the corner. I mean, for folks who are from Inglewood, like I'm sure they have different views, but like for me, I was just like, oh, this is a well-maintained park. The tennis courts are nice. The skate park there is nice. The outdoor basketball courts are nice. The grass and the baseball fields are well. The fields are drugged. They're mowed. They got a batting cage that you can get access to, where you just hit up the people. You can get the key. You can do one-on-one work with your kid, like. And then they got an indoor gym that just be open. And it's just like,
think about that.
You know what I mean? There are all of these things. And so I'm like, I'm in Oakland. I can't tell you a gym in Oakland that's
That we could get working.
Oakland Parks and Rec gym that we can just go to and make happen like that, or a batting cage that we can just get access to and get into. And so you also have to make things accessible. And so there's the private side of things. And like, sure, there are folks who have like their own facility, but like, that provides a barrier to entry that requires some money to rent those things. But like making sure that you're using the taxpayer money in your city to make sure that the parks are well maintained and playable, and like that does a part too, because it's a holistic approach to everything. It's not as simple as what we were saying before. It's not like, oh, just so kids can go hit a ball around. It's like, no, this is building community, right? It's like if you have
inspiration factor,
right,
there's so many different factors that go into it, but
exactly,
it's the generational impact that it can create,
right? And community building,
products of it.
It's like we had thousands of people at the field, and it's different folk. Like who knows how many connections were made just amongst adults at the time. Of like, oh, I was looking for a lawyer because I got in a car accident. Oh, this law firm sponsors this team.
That's my right here.
Literally, or it's like, oh, okay, like y'all got a restaurant. I needed somebody to cater this, and like all of these networks being built. And also from an economic standpoint, like when you have these overlapping social ties with folks, and it's like, oh, I see you all the time at this field. Your son plays on my son's team, or we play against each other. What is it that you do, or what? And so, but I think that's another reason why the city should understand that it's important to invest in these things. And then, I think if the city does their part in making sure that fields are playable and people have access to the sport, our generation and the people who coach us, who are still coaching, continue to do their part in being active and making sure kids are getting proper instruction, because baseball is a sport that like you do have to start it young. Like it's
hard to just pick it up.
Athleticism is only going to get you so far in this sport, and so
fundamentally sound.
And so us getting the same training in that we had from young kids and just learning the mechanics of throwing and hitting off the tee and working that way up. But I think that's the easy part. So many of us are ready, willing, and able to do that. That's important. And then again, just keeping on showing folks, like from a cultural standpoint, there are folks who are doing it in a way that y'all would like to do it and have the same swag and just exactly. And I mean,
not just in the league too, but just
everywhere.
Even at Tech, high school, like a little kid can look up to a high school player.
Definitely.
That's college, Cal's right there. Stanford, you have all these different opportunities, especially in the Bay. It's just to find inspiration now that, especially that the A's are gone.
It's going right. It's going to be. It's going to be a battle. We'll see.
All right. One last question. What does the next 10 years look like for you? What are some goals that you have? Man. What are you looking forward to? Just.
Like you said, somebody who has their hands in a couple of things, I'll say, I just applied to business school. As we were saying before, like business is something that I trial and errored my way through, kind of grassroots launching stuff, bootstrapping, self-funding, those type of things. And so excited to have the opportunity to say like, okay, cool. I'm a little older now, a little more solidified in understanding my relation to different things, done some stuff in journalism, media, done some entrepreneurship background things, understand a lot of things I want to do in sub-Saharan Africa and
Yeah.
locally in Oakland, California. So taking this opportunity to say like, cool, putting some things on pause and really focusing on, how to get institutional backing and more funding to really grow and scale some of these projects I've been working on. And so having some deliberate time for that. But then honestly, as long as I'm staying true to, the ethics and moral side of things while like building these things, it's like, cool, fashion, I want to expand that. I want to expand these factories and have people going to Ghana to produce their lines and things. And like our brand will be the proof of concept to show what's possible over here. But we're going to grow that. And that can branch into a lot of things when it comes to just sustainability and like sustainable business models and stuff out there. That's, TBD. Then
Yes, sir.
from a community side of things, like, Kim Folks is a standalone location. Well, is that something that will expand potentially? But even if we don't, like,
The spot is
is
still there.
there
Yeah.
is there other things that are in that field of community development and yeah, there's that, and then also just where I'm working right now, full time. I work with a place ESO Ventures as well, and what we do is our whole thing is making entrepreneurship accessible to all. So we do free business incubators, primarily focused in the Bay Area right now, but we also have our lender's license for the entire state of California, so people can come to us, get 0% interest, like small business
Yeah.
loans up to a certain amount, to grow their business after they go
Right
through
now.
an incubator. And so, just understanding that there's a way to kind of rewrite and ethically do business, and hoping that whatever it is that I continue to grow or pivot to, like, I'm doing things with some morals. I'm doing things that are actually, helping folks in our communities grow and putting the next person on and understanding how we can kind of grow and scale these things together. So, um, yeah, 10 years from now, though, we gonna see. I'm gonna be in California, staying back and forth between the West Coast, but hopefully I'll have a spot in Ghana as well. 'Cause I like traveling
Yes,
and be
sir.
between those places and moving around and yeah, just doing something that has the impact that I want to have and yeah, can provide the life that I'm living. That I'm
Yes,
already
sir.
living.
All right. So I've done this with every episode. We're
Yeah.
gonna end with 5 quick questions.
Whew.
It's all off the dome. He doesn't know any of this yet. So, all right. With the first one, what's your favorite piece that you've made for the brand, or just
Mm.
it could be a top three, but like that you personally are like that's your favorite.
Man. So I think the first one was just like these mud cloth trenches. That was the thing that got me started. I was like, man, I really want to make a trench coat out of this fabric. So that's like a timeless one, and it's still like
Yeah.
bestseller. People are always buying that. I think second, I'm a big fan of upcycling, and so we've been doing a lot of like denim upcycling and like patchwork stuff. And so I have these pants that we made. They're like a
Yeah.
quilted patchwork denim pants, and honestly I like them also because they were super warm. So when I was in New York and stuff, I
They
like wearing
need.
them because they was
Yeah.
warm. And then lastly, because we have been using so many like woven thicker fabrics, when it's warm outside like this, I was like, all right, well, I don't need to make some shirts, but I have a shirt that's called like the Independence Tour shirt, and it says like African Liberation on the front and on the back. It's designed to be like a artist's like tour
Yeah.
merch,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
instead, it's talking about all of these folks on the African continent who got like independence in like the 50s and 60s after like colonization. And so it's cool because a lot of people don't really know about that history, at least,
Yeah. Yeah.
stateside. And so it's definitely a conversation starter because folks are wondering, like, they recognize some people, they may recognize like Nelson Mandela, or they may
The big people.
recognize
Yeah.
Kwame Nkrumah or somebody, but they're like, who are these other folks? And then it just, you get to start having those conversations. So those are my top three: that shirt, the original trench coat, and the upcycled
It's
denim
dope because
stuff.
you're creating awareness to people in the states that you may assume that they know, but majority don't, to be honest, especially
Yeah,
in today's age.
yeah.
All right, next one. If you were to give a favorite spot to eat at in Oakland, it can't be your place.
Ooh.
What's your favorite spot to eat at? Your
Um,
top recommendation?
I would say between two, Los Camales Taqueria on Fruitvale, MacArthur. That's my spot ever since I was a kid. Shout out them. And then I'll probably say Bake Sale Betty's,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
undefeated. it
Can't go
feels
wrong.
weird to say like, oh, chicken sandwich, because it's not like what you think a chicken sandwich would be, but it's fire. It's one of them places that serves one thing. They have hella desserts and stuff too, but people be lined up for that, and like they just do that thing right and have been doing that right for
Amazing.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah. Next one, your top 5 Bay Area athletes of all time.
Top 5 Bay Area
It could be
athletes of
anything,
all time.
or it could be your personal favorite, just a
No,
personal.
no,
Yeah,
top
yeah.
5 Bay Area athletes of all time. Ricky Henderson. He went to my high school, and it's Ricky Henderson, stolen base. Like, come on, he's a
Speak
legend.
for itself.
Also went to my high school, but probably the most dynamic running back ever, arguably, is Marshawn Lynch.
That's 2, 3 more.
I want to see how deep I want to get to
Because you
this.
could. There's a lot.
I'm gonna go. I gotta go. Bill Russell,
Yeah.
the player coach. He went to McClymonds, for those who don't know, in West Oakland, but it's Bill Russell. That's a legend.
Yeah.
Biased fully here, so because of that, I will say Dame Lillard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dame time. He done sent some of y'all favorite players home.
Yeah.
Oakland High School. That's a Brookfield legend. Who would be my last Bay Area athlete of all
That's a good list
time?
so far.
Dang, this is a tough one. And it's not.
It's hard to
I'm not.
pick. There's so many.
Yeah, because I'm at a range of different people,
You
but
could do a shout out for people if they're
my
current.
personal, actually though, because I was a middle infielder, I'm going with Jimmy Rollins.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
That's a
Jimmy
clean
Rollins.
list. I like
I was
that.
between Jimmy Rollins and Jason Kidd, honestly.
Yeah,
And so I was like, but I need to give some more baseball. So Jimmy
that's
Rollins.
solid. That's a
Yeah.
good list for sure.
Yeah.
All right, last 2. Name your top films or favorite films that have influenced you, or that would be a recommendation for those that you want people to watch.
On the baseball hype, this is a timeless one. Hardball.
Yeah.
That's, it's a fictional film, but it had you feeling like you knew G Baby when he got shot. So, R.I.P. G Baby. Hardball is a top one, I think, from the documentary standpoint. One of my favorite films is this one, 12 O'Clock Boys. It's based in Baltimore. And it's about dirt biking in Baltimore, but it's so much more to it. Man, I like The Pursuit of Happiness. Will Smith and his son back in the day, because it's it's one of those things about discipline and like sticking to it, and the realities of trying to be an entrepreneur. Also,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this film that is underrated. It's called Minding the Gap. It got an Oscar nomination, but
Okay.
that was in like 2019. It didn't win, but it is a film technically about skateboarding, but it's a coming of age film that I think was very, organic. It was a good one. And then my last one, this is tough, but I'm a Jordan Peele fan.
Okay.
Nope, not as much, but I liked Get Out a lot, and I liked Us. But I just think he brought something new.
True to the industry.
Yeah, true to the industry. So, yeah,
That's a solid list. Too.
solid list,
All right,
solid list.
Last one. If you could give somewhere off the film, but now we'll go towards the book side.
Yeah.
Top 3 book recommendations for those.
Whoo. Top 3 book recommendations is probably tougher. I'd say.
Or some of your favorite. It doesn't have to be. For
Timeless stuff that sticks out. I say Autobiography of Malcolm X,
Okay.
and that's something that I've read. I'm probably due to read it again now, honestly, just because I've read it at different time periods in my life. There's a book called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. They just actually turned it into a film, but it's about this dude, real story about a dude who's from Newark, New Jersey, and Orange, New Jersey, and he went to Yale, was actually a really solid student, graduated, and just, struggling to find his way in what he wanted to do, and actually ended up being murdered tragically in like a botched robbery. But it was a good film because it just had it was a good book because it just showed so many different ranges of perspectives of like, even if you do get to this Ivy League point, it seems like everything is so good. Like, so that one was a good one. And then I'm trying to think of one recently that I read. There's a couple. But anything, this dude Howard French, he's actually a professor at Columbia Journalism School, and he writes a lot about sub-Saharan Africa and its development in relation to the world. But he has a book called A Continent for the Taking. He has one called Everything Under the Heavens. That's more so about China and its thing, and then another one called Born in Blackness. But it. He worked for the New York Times as bureau chief, based in sub-Saharan Africa for some time. Then he spent like almost a decade in China, and then like almost a decade in Japan. Yeah, so he got like his global perspective and understanding how the world works together is just he just got a unique perspective that I like reading his stuff. So anything by Howard French, Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, Autobiography of Malcolm X, top three.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, bro. You got a final message for the people? That was a good one.
Man, final message. Not to bite off the Nike logos and slogan, but like the just do it thing is real. I feel like the biggest thing that holds us back in whatever it is we're trying to do. We're trying to start a business, if we want to, reach some fitness goals, if we want to launch a podcast, if we want to write whatever it is, write a book, make a movie, like at the end of the day, that 10,000 hours is real. And the sooner you start on it, the better you're going to get. I guess the last thing I'll say is like one of my favorite things to do is like look back on some of my favorite, whether it's like artists or entertainers. It's easier to see, but like entertainers and music specifically. But like you go back and you find some early videos of some of your favorite entertainers doing early comedy shows, performing at a club that's nobody's there, and like understand like they went through these rough patches,
Yes.
and like it is no such thing as an overnight success. Like just because some folks may hear this first song, like best believe they didn't put in the work. And so you got to put in those 10,000 hours to get to where you want to be. And you got to go through them rough patches and have the discipline to stick it out. So, yeah.
That's solid, bro. Well, yeah, bro.
My guy.
Yes, sir.
Ah,
Thank you.
yeah, appreciate you.
If you like the episode, like, comment, subscribe. This man's really doing it. Follow him. Follow him on his journey. Follow the brand.
Yeah. And check out all of the episodes. I
Yes,
think
sir.
Nick been doing a great job of just getting a wide range of perspectives, expanding beyond baseball, but also using, like you said, baseball as a catalyst to get into all these other different topics that are super important. So make sure you check out No Agenda.
You heard what he said, right? Let's get it.